All right, so the angle sum theorem, this is what we're going to be learning about today. So what does the angle sum theorem say? It says the angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. Berto, write this down. Okay, so that's what the angle sum theorem says. It says the angles of a triangle always add up to be 180 degrees. Exactly. In every triangle. It doesn't matter if it's an obtuse, a right, an acute. It doesn't matter. Okay? So, what that means is that the measure in this triangle, the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle T all add up to 180 degrees. Okay? For any triangle, no matter what the size of these three angles are, they're always all going to add up to 180. Okay, so let me give you guys an example of this. Let's say that this angle was 90, and let's say this one was 45, and this one was also 45. How much do those total up to? 180, right? 45 plus 45 makes 90. 90 plus 90 is 180, right? Okay? So the sum of all the angles in a triangle always has to add up to 180. Okay? All right, now, it says find the measure of the missing angle. So what we can use is we can use this angle sum theorem. If we know that the angles in a triangle always add up to 180, we can find a missing angle in a triangle. Okay? So let's call this missing angle here, let's call it X. And we're going to add those three angles together and set them equal to 180. So we're going to do 40 plus 80 plus X equals how much? 180. Okay? And now we have an equation that we can solve. Okay, so when we solve this equation, we're going to combine like terms. What do we get for 40 plus 80? Okay. All right, next, how are we going to solve? Subtract 120 from both sides. Good. Okay, so we get our value of X equals what? 60. So what is the measure of the missing angle? The missing angle is how many degrees? 60 degrees. Okay. All right, now some of you guys are like, well, Miss Miller, I could have just added the two angles and then minus them from 180, right? You could. But are they always going to be regular numbers? No. Sometimes you're going to have X's or Y's or variables in there. So let's take a look at an example of that, like in number 2 right here. Okay? So in problem number 2, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at setting up an equation to help us solve this one. Okay? So let's add all three of these angles together. 50 plus 55, bless you, plus X plus 83 equals 180. The angles of a triangle always add up to 180. So now we're just going to solve that equation. So let's combine all of our like terms. I'm going to combine all three of these like terms. So 50 plus 55 plus 83. So what do we get? 188. So we have X plus 188 equals 180. Okay, so now what do we need to do to solve there? Yeah, let's subtract 188. Okay. All right, so what is the value of X that we get? Negative 8. Good. Okay, now, all it wanted me to do here was solve for X. So have I answered the question? Yeah. Okay, now, it's okay to get a negative value for X. If it asked me what was the measure of the missing angle, should I get a negative number for the angle total? No, okay? But this one was not asking me to plug it back in. It just wanted me to find X. Okay. Are there any questions on that one that we just did? Okay. All right, so let's take a look at example 3. Okay. Example 3 says find the measure of angle A. So look at where angle A is. Angle A is this angle right here, right? So what do we need to do first before we find the measure of angle A?
Find x.
Yeah, find x, right? So let's go ahead and set up an equation adding these three together. X plus 61 plus x plus 86 plus 55 equals 180. That will help us solve for x. After we solve for x, then we can find the measure of angle A. Now, class, does it matter what order I add all these in? Like what order I set them up in the equation? No, okay? So any order is fine. You're just going to end up combining all the like terms together anyways, right? So let's add your numbers together. 61 plus 86 plus 55 equals 202, right? And then we also want to combine our x's. How many x's do we have there? 2. So we have 2 x's plus 202 equals 180. Okay, so what would my next step be to solve here? Subtract 202. Good. Okay, so what do we get there? Negative what? 22. Okay, and then the last step? Divide. So what do we get for our value of x? Okay. Now, is negative 11 the answer? No. Okay. So to find the measure of angle A, what we need to do is we need to plug back in, okay, negative 11 into where angle A is. Angle A is right here. So the measure of angle A is going to be negative 11 plus 61. Well, what is negative 11 plus 61? 50 degrees, right? Okay, so this is your final answer right here. Okay, are there questions on that, how we got that right there? Okay. All right, so let's take a look at example 4. It wants us to find the measure of this missing angle, right? It's over here. Let's call this one x, since it's missing. Okay, now, in the one up here where I had the missing angle, didn't I just add the 3 things and make them equal 180? In this one, though, to add the three angles in here, what's this angle right here? You guys are telling me 90. How do you know it's 90? Why? Is it marked? It's a right angle? What if it's 89.9? It looks like a right angle, but how do you know is it labeled? Is there a mark? No. So we can't say it's a right angle, okay? Now, one thing I do see is there's these 2 angles over here, right? What do I know about these 2 angles? What kind of angles are these to each other? Vertical. Vertical angles are congruent, right? So if I can find this one, isn't it going to be the same as this one? And then once I know this one, won't that help me find x? Okay, so how do I find this one right here? What do I do with these? Okay, let's call this, instead of calling this angle x, let's call it y. Okay? Because we can't call this missing one the same thing as this missing one because I don't know they're the same size. What I do know is both of these right here are the same size, so I can also call that one y. So both of these missing angles I can call y. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's use this triangle right here to find y. So 50 plus 43 plus y equals how much? 180, because all the angles in a triangle add up to 180, right? Okay, so now let's solve that. 93 plus y equals 180. So what's your next step? Subtract. Okay, and what do we get for the value of y? 87, right? Okay, so now I know that this one's 87, right? And you told me it's a vertical angle with this one, so this one is also y, it's the same, right? This is 87. So now that I know that this over here is 87, how can I now find x? Use this triangle, right, to find x. So to find x, we're going to go ahead and do 87 plus what? 58 plus x equals how much? 180, because these are the three angles in this triangle, right? Okay, so let's see what we get there. 87 plus 58. Okay, 145. Okay, so what did you guys end up getting after you subtracted? What was your final answer, class?
35.
Okay, x equals 35. So, to answer the question, what is the value, what's the measurement of the missing angle? 35 what? Degrees. Okay, so make sure for your final answer, you write 35 degrees because it was asking for the measure of the angle. So you have to put degrees with it. Does that make sense? How we got that? Okay. Are there questions so far on what we did on that? Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this next part, okay? Let's say I have a right triangle. In a right triangle, the other two angles are always going to be acute, right? So, let's say that this angle over here is, let's just say it's 60 degrees. That one, okay? If that one's 60 degrees, what does this other one have to be? 30, right? 30 plus 60 plus 90 makes 180, right? Let's say I change this to 50 degrees. What does the other one have to be? 40. Okay? Because 40 plus 50 plus 90 makes 180, right? Let's say I change it to, I don't know, 70 degrees. What does the other one have to be? 20, right? Now, isn't it a lot faster? Instead of taking those numbers and subtracting them from 180, can't you think that since you know that in a right triangle this one's always 90, how much out of the 180 is left between these two angles? Those two angles always total up to 90, right? So it's easier when we're finding the missing one in a right triangle to just think these two angles add up to 90, right? So one thing we do know about any right triangle is that we say that its acute angles, the two leftover angles, are what we call complementary. Can you guys write that down? Now, you guys learned this word complementary before. Do you remember what complementary meant? It adds up to how much? Nope, not 180. How much? 90, okay? So, when we have a right triangle, we can kind of shortcut this whole 180 thing and just say that the two leftover angles add up to 90 degrees. They're complementary to each other, right? Because out of 180, if we take away the right angle, what's left is 90 degrees always. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's do some problems where we can use this shortcut, okay? So, it says here, find the measure of the missing angle. Can you guys see there's a right angle symbol here? Okay. So, what do you know about the two acute angles in a right triangle? They're complementary. That means they add up to how much? 90. So let's call this missing one x. X plus 60 has to equal how much? 90. Now, this was easy to solve in our head, right? What do we get for the answer? 30. So the value of the missing angle is 30 degrees. But is it always going to be that simple? No, sometimes there will be variables involved, right? So let's take a look at example 4. Okay, so you have your right angle symbol here. So what do you know about these two acute angles in a right triangle? They add up to how much? 90, okay? So we're going to do 23 plus x plus 72 equals 90 degrees. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve for x. Okay, let's start by combining your like terms. Okay, what do you get for your like terms there? 95. Oops, this is a plus here. Okay. All right, so next, what are we going to do? Subtract 95. And so what do we get for our value of x? Okay, so really quickly, we got x was -5, right? Okay, are there any questions on what we did with these two? Adding the acute angles up to 90 in the right triangle. Any questions there? Okay, so this is it for your notes for today. So you can staple this onto, what page did we say it was on? 16, okay?